You'll know if you should buy Godbreakers in the next 48 seconds. Here's your TLDR. If you judge games by feel, the third-person action of Godbreakers hits like a freight train. Pristine combat, full of dash cancels, crisp reads, finishers that steal enemy abilities, that also works on bosses, and rock-solid sessions even with 4 players. Upscalers play nice if you want the extra frames, Steam Deck's good, and overall settings are thoughtful. If you measure by breadth and price to content, it's a little bit thin for the ask at the moment, with most players brushing up against the meta completion comparatively quickly. The wall comes in the form of 5 biomes plus a finale, a meta that fills out fast, a few buffs run overtuned, and the loop starts repeating sooner than you might like. Squads with pre-mades or those content to solo will have fun today. People allergic to using Discord to fill groups should hold off until matchmaking exists. If gameplay is king for you, go buy it right now. If you want hours and hours of progression and easy matchmaking, maybe wait for a bit. If all you wanted was that TLDR, I get it. Thanks for sticking around. Before you go, though, do us a favor. Hit the YouTube buttons down there. It lets the robots on the back end know that this was useful, and we'll recommend the video to more people. If you want a more detailed breakdown of the things I talked about, stick around. Godbreakers released on October 23rd, 2025 on PC and PS5. PC users have the choice between Steam and Epic. Sorry, Xbox. Maybe eventually. At the time of this record, there's an introductory offer on Steam for 20% off, which slates it at $22.39 US or your regional equivalent. So the meat and potatoes of the core gameplay loop and combat. Godbreakers is a third-person action game wearing a short roguelite coat. The loop is built on snappy dodge, cancel control. You can break out of any animation or combo or ability mid-string, reposition, and keep tempo. If animation locks spike your blood pressure, this will be your happy place. It's slick. This is the kind of combat feel that other recent releases with similar art style were aiming for, and let's say they whiffed the landing. You want flow? This delivers in spades. For perspective, I reviewed this while also working my way through Ninja Gaiden 4 on stream. This feels platinum grade in terms of combat. Moment-to-moment execution is the star here. It's as a near-perfect take on indie high-skill third-person combat as is possible. Again, crispy animation control, a ceiling that rewards mastery, and clean readability most of the time. Some fights get visually dense to the point of becoming problematic in later biomes, but that's to be expected with difficulty spikes, I think. The dodge window is forgiving without feeling brainless, and overall that really supports constant initiative taking, positioning, and punchy decision making. There's 6 archetypes right now, which you can think of as your basic classes. You'll start off with a spear, glaive, polearm wielder, who's a bit of a jack of all trades, and you've got unlockable variations that hit the usual notes. Tanky Unga Bunga, dual-wieldy glass cannon, mixed range and melee. There's some solid variety on offer here. Each has their unique starting ability, and variations for each ability are based on in-game challenge completion. The unique mechanic that Godbreakers brings to bear is the titular God-breaking ability, or you knock an enemy's health bar down far enough, you can jump into their body, explodinate them from the inside, which also deals damage to other baddies around them. Nice. And grants you a single use of that mob's unique ability. And yes, it also works on bosses. Go nuts. You'll weave this into light and heavy combos, dash and aerial attacks, and unique equipment ability drops that you grab during each run. Those runs see you choosing from 2 planets at each early branch of the run, with each biome consisting of both a mini-boss and end boss that are punctuated with room clears along the way. In terms of enemy experiences, the boss fights really are the star. They're mechanically complex without being obnoxious, and reward shrewd, competent play. Yes, they'll frustrate you at times, but really at no point in any of my playthroughs did I feel like any of my deaths were unfair. I knew where I messed up, and, well, I earned that death. And I can't really say the same for many other roguelites. Now, on that note, let's talk about the roguelite bits on offer here. You have your standard loop of collecting meta currency on each run to unlock permanent upgrades, with each of those permanent upgrades progressing through 3 levels. By and large, it's the usual suspects, but without the needless system bloat that many other titles in the genre encumber themselves with. And within runs, there's collectible buffs and armor pieces which add unique effects. Think damage over time procs, increased crit chance or damage, mutators on specific circumstances that completely change how you play. It's nice. Now, these could do with a bit more balancing of comparative power levels, but it's solid for a first release. As for solo versus co-op experiences, I've spent about a 50-50 split of my time in-game between the two. With a full group, it sings. Working with and around each other is chaotic without becoming frenetic, and it feels like full lobbies are the intended experience. If I had 3 other friends who play instead of needing to pug, I could see this being a glorious weekend blast. All throughout my co-op playthroughs, I didn't notice any performance or netcode issues. Now, as for solo play, pacing was perhaps a bit slower, more methodical, but fortunately, there is multiplayer scaling that goes based upon the number of people who are connected, so you're never really looking at unfair enemy HP and damage tuning based on whether or not you're solo. I can appreciate that. Hey, you into this kind of breakdown so far? You know what to do. So for overall feel and vibes, the presentation package is minimalist, vibrant art with clear silhouettes and punchy encounter music. These exist to keep speed readable while dropping ambiance like, whoa. Visuals are striking in a Sword of the Sea kind of way. This one seems cut from a similar cloth as Ghosts of Yote, where you could just pick a random frame and probably be a pretty decent wallpaper or splash screen. Musically, it legitimately surprised me, with the caliber of the boss tracks in particular. Here, give it a listen. Moving on to performance and settings options. I have very few notes on performance here, which I appreciate considering recent releases. It runs well on both of my PCs, hitting the refresh rate caps of 240 and 144 Hz respectively, and it's Steam Deck certified out of the box. The art style does upscale nicely with DLSS or your preferred upscaler, so that widens the sort of hardware that can comfortably run it. Graphics options are pretty solid out of the box, so you can tweak the performance to your desired outcome. And this attention to detail continues in the rest of the settings menu. Personally, I appreciate the inclusion of a camera distance slider and the ability to tweak things like camera shake if you want more situational awareness at the expense of a more cinematic experience. And there's full key binding for both mouse and key as well as controller, which is a rarity. It's solid. Well done, y'all. Not a stutter in sight. And with a game focused around tight combat, any technical hitches here at all would doom the title. And I'm happy to say that that's certainly not the case, at least in my experience. As for spots where there might be a little bit of friction, the content runway. Here's a potential wall. At release, there's 5 biomes plus a final boss fight realm. And if you look around online in the usual places, many players are saying they're hitting about 75% meta completion in about 10 hours. That's perhaps a bit aspirational for many, but hey, different skill levels exist. The game provides a fantastic quick fix for hack and slash cravings, but for diehard roguelite mains hunting hundreds of hours, repetition can set in a little bit fast. This echoes a bit when you start looking at some of the dialogue about price versus value, with the usual places, again, saying that it feels much more in line with a $15 or $20 roguelite experience as the easy buy zone. This is one of those times where I'm going to disagree. I feel as though there's a bit of a genre expectation mismatch here. The tension isn't whether or not the combat rocks, it's whether or not the roguelite contract is honored. Some folks would say that the game struggles to scale effectively as a true roguelite. Does explain the split between mechanics first and longevity-based reviews or dialogues on like Reddit and the Steam forums and whatnot. But for me, a tailored, streamlined experience is worth far more than hours of bloat and frustration with a roguelite that actually hurts your progression problems because of the way percentages and probability work the more things you unlock. That might be a rant for another video. That's a later talk. And a little bit of a reality check for the multiplayer offerings here. The co-op design is a strength. As I said earlier, it feels like the intended experience. The infrastructure at launch is not great. PC crossplay is Steam and Epic only. If you rely on public lobbies, the fantasy gets a little bit raggedy at the edges. You'll need pre-mades, or you simply don't get the experience being advertised. Thankfully, the Godbreakers Discord is active with people looking for groups, at least as of the time of this recording, and it's a pretty quick fill. Now, wrapping things up with overall value, the Burrito index, and final verdict. Now, if you're not familiar with my burrito index, that's a comparison of dopamine that the game provides versus how many al pastor burritos I can get from the mercado down the street from me for the same price. And I'm of the opinion that al pastor has a pretty high dopamine per dollar ratio. So if we look back at that 75% complete around 10-ish hours aspirational goal that I'd mentioned a moment ago, $27 for that is a little bit steep. Now, as I did mention, I feel like there's a little bit of genre expectation mismatch happening here. And at the same time, I feel like the launch discount of $22.39 US is much closer to the price that I would call a weekend banger with friends with premium feel. So for the hard and fast version of who should buy, who should wait, etc., the people who should buy it right now are mechanic zealots and pre-made squads of friends. You live for execution, the combat is the point, and it's technically polished, and as a bonus, it's pretty. For the value hunters and solo roguelite mains, I'd say this is a strong wait for discount. You want breadth and long tail rerolls. Hold out maybe for further updates that introduce new biomes or diversity, or a $20-ish sale if that extra 7 is a deal breaker for you. I would say realistically, the only people this is a hard skip for are folks who dislike third-person action games, which weird that you're here watching a review on that. Anyway, or people who are allergic to Discord, simply because, as I said earlier, matchmaking is questionable. All in all, Godbreakers is a brilliant action game that's wrapped up in a short roguelite skin. Devs bulk up some biomes and fix the matchmaking. This could graduate from mechanics showcase to must own. Today, I would say that the wait for discount crew are going to be the largest subset. And, the buy now folks, well, the dash cancel life chose them. Anyhow, those are my thoughts on Godbreakers, but I'm curious about yours. What do you think about the combat flow? Personally, I'm a fan of this stabby glass cannon, surprising no one, if you've been around the channel at all. About the only way I could be more stoked about a class is if it was a glass cannon unga bunga strength build. But can't have everything. Anyhow, do your thing. Comments. Let's chat. You want more reviews like this? Clean, to the point, zero fluff. Do the thing. Hit the YouTube buttons. It helps the robots know that this is useful content, and we'll recommend it to more people. I've been Bald Squid. I'll see y'all next time.